What's up, guys? So I'm going to be talking today about Haruki Murakami's novel, Norwegian Wood. It was the first Murakami novel I've read. I've read it since several times, and it is a novel that made me fall in love with Murakami's writing, and to the point where Murakami is now my favorite novelist. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about it, and go into a little bit about what it's about, and talk a little bit why I like it. Okay, so for those who don't know, Norwegian Wood is a novel that was originally published in Japan in, I believe, 1987. It got an English translation in the 90s, I forget when. But it catapulted Murakami into superstar status when he published it. He published a few novels before, and they were moderately successful, but this novel made him like a household name in Japan. But the novel is basically it's about this guy who's looking back on his. What the fuck is that? Sorry, I don't know what that sound is, but it's about this guy who's looking back on his time in college in the '60s, and he's kind of just this quiet, withdrawn kind of guy. He doesn't really do much. He doesn't really go out of his way or anything. He's an introvert, which is a common theme with Murakami's characters, at least his protagonists. And he's kind of just commenting on he has a friend that sleeps around with different women a lot, even though he has a girlfriend. A girlfriend who doesn't care that he sleeps around with different women. He goes off to bars with them, and they hook up with chicks. Talks about this roommate he has is really obsessed with fitness and routine and order. And now him and his friends would fuck with him. And also he talks about this girl that he knew in high school who dated a friend of his who died, and they start meeting up and becoming friends again and kind of reconnecting. And eventually, they start having romantic feelings for each other, which causes them to have a very torrid kind of relationship. She has, mental health problems to the point where she even drops out of college and goes to live in this communal place in the mountains for people who are just kind of need a break from everything. And he feels deeply for her. It's the first time he's ever been seriously, seriously caring about someone that much. And she cares for him, but at the same time she knows that she is unstable, and having a relationship with him wouldn't be the best idea. So she kind of distances herself a little bit, because they go from seeing each other a bit, and then she is disappears basically. And, she goes to this place and she writes some letters talking about herself and what's going on. And at one point he goes out to visit her, and he meets her roommate, who's this really interesting older woman who plays guitar and has a very sad story about why she kind of became the way she became to get to this place. But him and his girlfriend, they hook up again there, but then she acts like it doesn't happen, and it throws him off, and he was like, well, what did I do wrong? Why is she acting like nothing happened between us, even though it did? And it's kind of just his coming of age, basically. It's a coming of age story, for sure. But it's handled so realistically and genuinely, it doesn't feel like your typical cliche coming of age story. It just feels like a guy reminiscing about his life and, the first love of his life, someone who he deeply cares about. And all of Murakami's writing, there's a tone of sadness to it. Everything he writes has this melancholic kind of vibe to it, which I'm a melancholic kind of guy myself. I really relate to it, and I relate to his characters because they're a lot like me. I share a lot of similar personality traits, believe it or not. especially for someone who does a YouTube channel. Like, I'm actually, in real life, I'm not this, like, conversational or open with people, or most people. But it's just a well-written book. The thing that grabbed me not only was, his characters, but how well he can say so much with so little. Murakami is a very, very minimalist writer, but he gets everything across in so few words. It's and not only that, but his way of describing characters. He can, each character is different and unique, and he can describe what's unique and different about them in just a few words. I mean, you have the protagonist. His name is Toru, who he's withdrawn and introverted. You have Nooka, his girlfriend, who is more kind of, complex. She's kind of chatty and friendly, but she's also has like withdrawn moments, and the further the story gets, the more introverted she becomes, the more withdrawn she becomes. You have his roommate, who's this kind of really uptight, kind of like stick in the mud kind of guy, and that's described beautifully. You have his college buddy who likes to go out and score with women, and he's described as like this intellectual, like, but aloof and kind of like don't give a shit about anything kind of persona. But yeah, I mean, and there's a lot that happens in between. There's like little side stories as the main character goes on. He meets other women. He becomes friends with. At one point, he even hooks up with a couple of the other women in the story, because they're just as emotionally empty and looking for someone to connect with as he is. The thing that grabbed me most of all, and the thing that got me hooked into it, and the reason I've read it so many times, and the reason it got me into Murakami, is it's just deeply relatable. And I'm not going to say it would be relatable to everybody, but it was relatable to me. Like, everything it talks about, and the way it talks about, and just the feeling of deep yearning, the drive to connect with someone, the intense longing for someone to care that much about him, and to care that much about him, someone that he finds that he can deeply connect with, someone that he feels that he could have a future with. I've been there, even if I couldn't. And the thing is, he doesn't get her the girl in the end either. His girlfriend doesn't... I'm trying to think of how to say this, yeah. Because I don't want to give anything away. But she doesn't reciprocate in the long run. And he's left alone. And the thing is, the story is written from the present day, which would have been the 80s, looking back on the 60s, and you can tell just how he's narrating these things. He still feels that emptiness. He still feels that longing for it. And that soul-crushing sadness that comes with knowing you won't have that person that you deeply care about, that person that, wants so badly to be with you and to be with, that person that makes you happy and makes you feel like that hole inside of you has been filled, and that person that you just want to be with every day, and that you want to wake up to next day and look at them and be like, I love you. And that's what made me gravitate to it so much, is that being in that place, especially at the time I read it, and the knowledge of how well and mature he writes all these things, and that's what works for me, and all of his novels kind of have that similar tone and style. They tackle these same kind of themes, but they're themes I can deeply relate to, and they're stories that are interesting. And unlike a lot of his other, unlike Norwegian Wood, most of his other writing is very weird and surreal, which is another thing I like. So, it's just kind of, his novels are kind of just a stew of ingredients that work for me and resonate with me on a personal level. And that's why Murakami is my favorite novelist. But, anyways, I rambled on a lot. I'm sorry. I kind of got off in different tangents, but definitely check it out if you haven't read it. you know, or if you've even heard of Haruki Murakami, but you don't know really who he is or have read anything by him. Norwegian Wood to me is like the best Murakami starter. Like, you know, if there's one Murakami novel I would recommend to anyone, and people even ask me this to start with, I'm like, Norwegian Wood. It's a good accessible kind of like novel to get into his stuff. It's not as weird and surreal. It's a lot more digestible, but also just really relate, and it's just a well-told story. So that's why I like it, and that's why I recommend it. So anyway, sorry to ramble on, guys. I'll be back soon with another video. I know I keep saying that, but I'm trying to put them out sooner than usual lately. So until then, I will catch you guys later. Bye.